with that, going to move on to our way too early preview. Started for Auburn football. Started off with week 1 opponent, Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs in Huntsville, Alabama. The second time these two programs have ever met, the third time these teams have ever met. Auburn winning both matchups. One of them, of course, in 2012, and one of Auburn's 3 wins that season, and another big win in 2016. This is also the 5th time that Alabama A&M will be taking on an SEC opponent. They are 0-4 all time, losing to Vanderbilt twice. They've only ever played 2 SEC teams, really, Auburn and Vanderbilt. So that's a little weird thing that I looked up and found earlier. Of course, this game is going to be on August 31st at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Of course, this is going to be an orange out game to celebrate kickoff on the Plains. This game will be broadcasted on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. And with that, just kind of get into it. Going over Alabama A&M a little bit, their head coach, Connell Maynor. He has been coaching for Alabama A&M since 2018. He boasts a 34-26 record, 24-17 in the SWAC, and won the FCS championship in 2020 and 2021, or the 2020-2021 season. He finished 211 in the 24/7 rankings this past off season, and 148 in the transfer portal rankings. This is a very solid team in the SWAC. They finished kind of in the middle of the pack, 5-6 last year for the Bulldogs. Started off against Vanderbilt, lost 47-13 to the Commodores, a team that finished the bottom of the barrel in the SEC. This is definitely not a game that I can look at and even try to remotely clickbait that it could be a potential upset. At the lowest, Auburn should take this game pretty handedly. I would say 2-3-ish touchdowns at the minimum. This should be a Akron level game. Auburn shouldn't ever struggle in this game. It should be no holds barred for a half or a half and a half, really. Take them down to the third quarter. This is going to be a kind of a show off game. Show off what you got on roster. Because going through the Alabama A&M offense, they returned 2 of their top 3 receivers. They returned all 3 of their top 3 leading rushers. They have a little bit of a quarterback battle going on. I'll talk about in just a second. But definitely a team that Auburn should take down. They returned a lot of their defensive players. Got a pretty decent amount of interceptions. Had 2 guys finish with over 2, with Caleb Dawson getting 3 and Amari Pate getting 4. Again, this is just not a game that I feel like Auburn should be. Definitely not a game to look past, but definitely not a game that I think Auburn will struggle in. And this is like the worst game to preview right now because the rest of them are all FBS teams. Alabama is, of course, the FCS team. Auburn has never lost to FCS team, knock on wood. So definitely a game Auburn should win. Auburn should win handedly. I think it's going to be, again, like I said earlier, a show-off game. Show off the depth. Show off Jeremiah Cobb. Show off Holden Garner's arm. Show off Hank Brown's arm. Get Walker White involved. I think it's going to be a good game for Walker White to come in. Maybe throw some screens, throw some slants, just kind of get acquitted to the game. Get used to the level of speed. Get real in-game experience where you're actually going to be getting hit, of course. Because, of course, you're not going to see Walker White play in any of the SEC games unless something drastic happens. Again, I'm going to knock on wood. I think it's safe to say Auburn does finish, does go into week 2 against Cal 1-0. But looking at, I got a nice little talking points about Alabama A&M because I always find it interesting looking up teams that I don't really follow all that often. Returning 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. So last year they had 2 quarterbacks splitting time. I don't know if it was due to injuries. Could not really find much information on that. They had Quincy Case. He's no longer with the team. Threw for 1,490 yards last year, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Xavier Langford Also came in for 8 games, threw for 904 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. And then rushing wise, you had Donovan Eaglin, who is returning, former transfer from Michigan State, rushed for 765 yards and 7 touchdowns. Backup running back Ryan Morrow rushed for 6 touchdowns and 436 yards. And then back quarterback Xavier Langford is third in touchdowns with 6, or tied for second with 6, and then third in rushing yards with almost 300 yards on the ground as well. And the interesting part about Xavier Langford, he'll be going into the season not as the starting quarterback, but kind of battling out with Avion Smith, a transfer from Miami, Ohio. Last year, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions as the backup quarterback. Also threw for 638 yards. Also rushed for 280. But in 2022, Avion was a very good quarterback for Miami, Ohio. 1,300 yards passing, 11-5 touchdown interception ratio, 550 rushing yards, and 6 touchdowns for the quarterback. I think that Avion probably the guy to go to. I think he also has FBS experience with Miami, Ohio. I just think it'd be the smarter choice. So get a fun guy to look out for, dual threat guy in every sense of the word. And I don't know if I'd put him on the same level as like dealing with a Tyson that Auburn had to deal with with the Akron last year. But I think definitely a dual threat guy to look out for nonetheless. But both those guys kind of had decent 2022 campaigns compared to last year. Both of them threw for over 1,000 yards, with Langford throwing for 1,070 in 2022. Threw 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So an interception problem with that. Rushed for about the same amount for more yards, 280, and 3 touchdowns as well. So gonna be a fun matchup for Auburn fans at the very least. I do see a couple of storylines taking place. This is going to be probably a game you're going to see a lot more of Jeremiah Cobb, which I'm not opposed to. I wouldn't be mad at Jarquez Hunter kind of getting in for like the first 3 drives that Auburn can score on, and then you immediately start switching in running backs. I want to see plenty of subbing this game. This needs to be the find what can work game before Cal, which hopefully before the game starts, you already know what does and what doesn't. But I would not be surprised in the slightest if the very first game of the season is like a 4 verts call to Cam Coleman just going deep. I would not be surprised in the slightest that was the first play call of the regular season, just because it just makes so much sense. It'd be so poetic for the first game of the season to start off with your say bomb deep to Cam Coleman. So if I had to give a way too early prediction of the game, I would probably have to go like Auburn 60. Let's see. I think you get your kicker in to kick some deep. So let me say Auburn 66, Alabama A&M say 9. I'll say 9, so 66-9. Auburn starts off the season hot going into Cal, which we'll talk about next Tuesday right here on the College Loop. So make sure you check that out when it comes up.